This is Empty the Bench with Tom Albano.
Buck, Aikman, Booger, Salters, all of them, they really showcased a hell of an ability. What was practiced in that studio, in that booth on Monday night, will probably be taught in college journalism classes for years.
Nick Morgasen.
There's two reasonings, one on each side, for this tweet. One, Fox is saying, cha-ching, 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 154 million views. We're major.
Empty the Bench starts now.
Shame on Roger Goodell. Shame on Troy Vincent, who keeps coming out and saying to the media, well, you were never going to play the game. Yeah, you were. You were going to go play this game.
Hello. You play to win the game.
And it is all about the money.
And it is all about the game. Welcome to episode 167 of Empty the Bench. That's Nick Morgasen. I'm Tom Albano. Obviously a day late. Everyone feeling a little under the weather.
Yeah, trust me, you didn't want to hear me yesterday. I sounded like death.
Well, it's actually kind of funny that kind of ends up being more of a blessing in disguise, because just so you guys may have noticed, those of you who actually pay attention to us on social media, we didn't put out a weekly promo, and that's because everything we talked about on the promo when we originally recorded it late Sunday into Monday, by the time our recording has happened, everything has been flipped upside down, turned inside out, and stretched, dropped on its head. Everything that could have been changed has been changed. It looks like a really big pile of mess.
I'll tell you what's accurate this week. That's going to be very accurate this week because the stories, there's a lot of headlines. We went from, this is one of those weeks again where we didn't think, we had like one major headline, and we went from like having one to having like four. By the way, let's get this all out of the way. Follow the show on social media at ETB Sports, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. Follow the Empty the Bench podcast network at ETB Network, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Okay, so big show. A lot of topics to discuss. Hopefully I'm not going to have a coughing fit because I had plenty of those yesterday.
Yeah. So there's going to be everything and, well, everything on this kind of show. Everything, like I said, has been a little upside down, tipsy-turvy. So we've got wrestling leading our episode. And then, if I can make another wrestling reference, an interference, a run-in by baseball with the sudden news of Carlos Correa.
Well, who knew baseball news was going to be important at this point of the year?
I mean, we went from wrestling being our lead to baseball being our lead. And then what happened to basically cause a shitstorm in the wrestling world a couple of nights ago. And now wrestling's back in the lead.
And let's not forget, we do have tennis at the top of our headlines as well.
Top three, yes, Naomi Osaka. However, even that has now shifted within the last half a day or so.
Well, let's put it this way: we have non-traditional sports as two of the top three headlines of this show.
Damar Hamlin's recovery, sadly, is number 4 on our list.
Well, let's alert everybody. We didn't forget about it. Trust me, you just heard it in the intro. How this, I basically went back to the weekend review because remember, we're a weekly show, so we have to catch everybody else up from where we ended up last. But we have a lot to get into. We're going to talk about Super Wildcard Weekend, 6 games coming up, which, by the way, Tom and I were talking about before this, probably the worst 6-game wildcard weekend we've seen in years.
I mean, I think it has its fair share, but I think it also has, let me put it to you this way. Bills Dolphins could have been a good game, but now that Tua Tagovailoa is not playing, that's a little out the
You
window.
can't watch it. You can't watch it.
If Lamar Jackson does not play, Ravens Bengals becomes a questionable mess. I mean,
And Lamar hasn't practiced, so how can you even make that a feasible thing?
it's concerning that we'll get into it when we talk about wildcard weekend, but we already may have seen Lamar Jackson's last game in a Baltimore Ravens uniform.
Well, unless they tag him, which is possible, but
While I agree with that, I think there's a chance that we could, if they tag him, see a holdout.
right, like I have said in the past, but he's mad because he hasn't gotten his money.
Then fifth on our list, we do have the national championship, which, as Space Jam once said, kind of one-sided, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, biggest blowout in national championship history, 65-7. Stenson Bennett had 6 touchdowns. What was it? 4 rushing and 2 throwing or something like that.
My question is, who's going to take a chance on a 25-year-old quarterback in the NFL draft?
I know everyone keeps saying that, but I think he'll find a home. I don't know where he's ranks quarterback wise. Obviously, you have Bryce Young and those guys going first, but this game was such a blowout. By the half, it was 38-7.
And I turned it off after the first quarter.
The story became David Pollack sitting next to Nick Saban during the halftime show and basically telling Saban to his face that he thinks Georgia's the team to beat going forward. And Saban's emotions we're just showing you, like, really? You're doing this while I'm still coaching?
All right. But there is a lot that we got to get into. And so, Nick, how do you say, let's get into it here?
Yeah, we got a lot to get to.
All right. Starting things off. What the fuck is going on in WWE?
Yeah.
Because,
this is crazy.
This is a very long headline here. So there's a lot of moving pieces here that it's just, well, here's what I'm going to say. Professional wrestling in its very olden times was a carnival thing. You know, it was a carnival thing. And so I think this music is very appropriate when it comes to the WWE right now. Don't think I forgot about you. Don't think I forgot about you. There's still got to be some process that's right here. All right. Let's, however, begin with this. So there's multiple layers to this story. So when we last left you in 2022, there was a report that Vince McMahon was looking to basically get his way back into the WWE. Well, he has now. Let's do the TLDR version already before we get into it. He has now. He is back. He is executive chairman, back on the board of directors, along with a couple of other George Barrios, Michelle Wilson, who have been previously ousted in WWE. Stephanie McMahon, his daughter, is out. Not just out of the board of directors, not just out of CEO, out completely.
Resigned,
correct. And then there are, well, let's put it this way. Over the last couple of years, like I remember us talking about when the major cuts of 2021 came.
I remember that because those were crazy, the amount of people they cut.
And we said that part of it could have been the potential of WWE being for sale. Well, if the reasons for Vince McMahon's return says anything, if the amount of the chaos says anything, there is no more if in this scenario. It is that WWE is for sale. And we had, over the last 36 to 48 hours, a lot of madness. Tuesday night wrestling Twitter ended up being one of the most chaotic things I have ever seen. One of the most chaotic days of wrestling I have ever seen when it comes to wrestling and social media. Nick, if we were recording on our normal Tuesday night, we would have been in absolute chaos.
Yeah, I mean, excuse me. I was watching social media. I was watching Twitter, and I see all these headlines coming out. When I saw the report originally that Vince was back, I mean, you and I have discussed this for weeks that we had a feeling he was coming back, but for him to come back just to say, "Adios, I'm selling." Now, I'm hearing reports to the contrary that he could stay on as the creative even if they sell it. Would that even be a
Yeah.
thing?
I mean, that is a fear amongst those who are big into the WWE. There's a fear amongst that, despite the fact that he retired and the Triple H regime has taken over for the last 5, 6 months, that Vince could trickle his way back. Uh, there are these rumors about this potential deal to Saudi Arabia, and if that ever came to fruition, I don't know, Nick. You might have better knowledge of it from what you see over with LIV or what you see over with is it Man United that's owned by the Saudi Public Interest Fund?
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
It's one of the big it's one of the big football clubs. I think it's Man U. But in those organizations, they have people who are, you know, experts in the specific field. Soccer for Man U, golf for the LAD. Nick, for better or worse, Vince McMahon would be a very big mind when it comes to the professional wrestling business if they were to get into it. So, one angle, I think we need to start with the beginning. Let's just start with the angle of Vince McMahon's return. Now, I always say in combat sports, Nick, that the word retirement is just something that's constantly thrown around. Nobody
It's more of a news term. It's not really a real thing.
nobody truly stays retired for permanently.
Go ask the Hulk. How many times did he say he was going to retire in WWE? And like, you've just seen him come back and do like classic stuff, like with WWE, or
Uh,
uh, you could throw any old wrestler.
Undertaker.
Yeah.
How about the fact that Ric Flair, even at 70 something years old, wants to wrestle again?
I mean,
Yeah.
yes, that man has a well, I shouldn't say no. He has a libido because he keeps rolling, but um, I don't know. I just WWE is one of those things where no one dies. I guess is the best way I can put it.
Let's be careful on that one. They've
You
had
know
some
what I
pretty
mean.
tough cases.
You know what I mean. Like people just they're in the
Nobody truly hangs up the boots.
right, and that concerns me at times because of the amount of physical stunts and capabilities that go down during some of these WWE events where you have people jumping off ropes and jumping through tables and smashing heads. And I'm like, it makes me wonder sometimes how these older guys still do it.
They just do it a little softly and they don't do as many big bumps and such. As far as this goes, I think the fear was that even though Vince McMahon retired, there was all these things that, maybe he's calling the shots from another direction, or maybe he would find his way back anyway. That, once the heat died down from his hush money situation. So here's basically, according to the reports, how things went. Vince McMahon, around Christmas time, wanted to come back to the WWE and penned a letter to the board of directors talking about how this year they're doing the media rights deals for the US. Next year, the deals with NBC Universal to air Monday Night Raw and with Fox to air Friday Night SmackDown expire. So the US television rights for WWE are basically at stake. And you remember the billions of dollars last time that they got. We had covered it on the Unspoken days when Fox nabbed the SmackDown rights. Um, and so Vince penned a letter saying that this was a very critical time, mentioned in the letter about the possibilities of a sale, and says for WWE essentially to maximize its profit and sale value and whatnot, it would be in the best interest that he came back. The board of directors penned a letter back basically saying, you're more than welcome, as the founder, as the man who helped to innovate this business, to help, cultivate the WWE to what it is. You're more than welcome to help in the process. However, we don't want you back. We're still months removed from the scandal. Vince McMahon, by the way, is still under investigation by the Securities and Exchange Commission. So maybe this is not of the best interest. But then, Nick, Vince McMahon penned the letter back and made a point that actually we did talk about when Vince McMahon originally went away. Is that in spite of his retirement, Vince McMahon still owned 30-something% of the shares. He is still the majority stockholder, which would mean any potential sale would have to go through him. And he basically implied to the board of directors, if you don't have me back, I will reject any potential sale of the WWE that you would want to do.
He's using his power essentially to be a bully.
Yeah, he is basically strong-arming his way into
Now,
coming back.
Let me say one thing. He's within his right. If he owns the majority stake of the shares, he can reject any sale. Not saying that he should or shouldn't, but he is within his right. If he technically owns the majority, and he does, he's allowed, he basically, and this is more from a financial aspect, he's got first veto of control, essentially. So basically they were at a crossroads. They said he either said you let me back in the door or we're all screwed. Now, the other question I have is he selling the WWE because of the hush money scandals?
I mean, I can't say yes or no to that because, as I mentioned, this is not the first time a WWE and sale have gone hand in hand. When the WWE was making all those cuts, we said that, maybe that, because if you remember, they were making all those cuts during the pandemic, April 2020 and then April 2021. And we were pointing out, well, they're still making maximum profits. And we talked about the potential that, okay, they're maybe trying to limit their, the amount they're spending on wrestlers and other expenditures to maximize profits to make themselves look good for a potential sale. So this is not the first time that we've heard WWE and sale in the same sentence. However, with what we're going to talk about next, the different other angles, it seems like, as I said, there is no longer a if it's going to be sold, but matter of when it's going to be sold.
And what about the Peacock angle? Is that part of it too, or no?
Well, Peacock, NBC Universal is one of the potential suitors, one of the potential buyers who could be.
But isn't there content on there?
Yeah, their WWE network essentially is through Peacock. And I think part of Vince's logic, as he was kind of maybe trying to explain in those letters to board directors, is if we can get this much for our content to be on there, how much more would they be willing to pay to just own us?
Take the whole thing.
Take the whole bag.
I was thinking about this also, and there's one company that is spending a lot for content already that you and I might be thinking on the same page. I don't know. Okay. But there's one very large company that's already made a huge Amazon.
So there's all these rumors about all the potential, the big boys of streaming, Amazon, Netflix, Disney, if they would have some sort of interest. Obviously, you've got NBC Universal, who already has had a long-standing relationship with the WWE, having aired Monday Night Raw on the USA Network since 2005. And most of Monday Night Raw's inception, with the exception of a 5-year period where Raw was on the current Paramount network, the former Spike TV and TNN and such. And then, of course, you've got Fox Broadcasting, who paid billions of dollars for SmackDown.
A shitload of money. Yeah.
Right. So you can't count them out. And
I
then
mean,
you've got the Saudi
I,
Arabia angle that we'll get into.
I mean, you could also have Warner Brothers Discovery could be in that discussion. I mean,
Well,
the
true,
one
Discovery Plus.
but the one issue you do have is that AEW is already on Warner
Oh,
Brothers Discovery.
yeah, no. I'm sorry, you're right. If that no, it would they would not be. You would not have two competitors, and
That would be a heck of a a
that's not
content.
gonna happen. Um, but yeah, so you have all these different potential suitors, and Vince was basically saying the best way to get our best profit is if I came back on board. Now, I don't know if that's true, considering, I mean, on one hand, yes, he was the innovator. He has been the brain of WWE for a while when it comes to the business end. But considering the kind of things that he was ousted and basically forced into a retirement over, I don't know if that is really necessarily for the best. Um, George Wilson, George Barrios and Michelle Wilson, the former co-presidents of WWE. Actually, if I remember when talking about the 2021 cuts, I had mentioned, well, those two were the co-presidents of WWE and then were both fired in early 2020 because of difference in philosophy. At that time, George and Michelle wanted to, you know, kind of keep a tight ship on the money. But that was when we started the AEW rise. That was a few weeks after Dynamite had debuted on TNT, which is now on TBS. And basically, what Vince wanted to do was lock up all the talent. Basically, yeah, I would rather pay these guys to continue to come and just not do anything and sit in catering or sit at home than go work for the competition.
Which
Uh,
is crazy because AEW has now been on a much bigger rise lately in the last couple of years. I see a lot more of their events. TBS, well, Turner is really promoting the shit out of them like crazy. You see the commercials everywhere. You even see them like getting some promotional play like on Inside the NBA, or you're seeing them get promotion. Like you don't really see that with the WWE.
AEW definitely has been getting a little bit of the push from Turner. That's not to say they've had every single success over the last year or so. It's kind of been a little the
Didn't they
whole
just have a name cross from the WWE over to AEW, female wrestler or some?
Correa page.
Yeah. So I'm seeing
Um,
some name. I'm seeing like some crossover.
yeah. But then there also has been, say, the CM Punk Elite thing, backstage stuff that also has pretty much put a damper on AEW. But that's AEW. That's neither here or there. This is a big WWE focused thing. And not too long after Vince McMahon came back to power, and in fact, it's actually a couple of days ago, Stephanie McMahon, his daughter, who has been the brand officer for the longest time with WWE, became co-CEO with Nick Khan following Vince's departure in late July, early August, penned a letter basically saying, "Oh, it's been an honor to basically lead Vince." They had noted that Vince McMahon was unanimously voted executive chairman of the board once again. Three members of the board resigned. Three members of the board were basically let go to make the place for Vince and George and Michelle. Two others resigned, including one who was leading the investigation into Vince McMahon, which kind of fair point on them because you don't want to be on the same board as the person who you are investigating.
I'll tell you right now. I'm sure those people are going to do just fine once the sale comes through, though.
Uh, but fair point. But as I was going back to, Stephanie basically penned a letter saying, okay, now that, because remember, she had been on a leave of absence for a few months before Vince was ousted at the whole charges. And now she's saying, I'm going to resume that, and I'm going to go one step further and just resign completely. No more
See,
brand officer, CEO, COO, whatever. She's just out of the picture.
I had missed that because I had sent that to you because I'm like, oh, well, all right. She's just penning a letter saying like, all right, I did what I was going to do. My father's back. You pointed out to me the word resign. I didn't even see it in the letter when I sent it to you.
Yeah, it's completely stunning. And now that and it's that kind of letter that is causing the concerns of, okay, Vince has said he's only here for the purposes of the sale, for the purposes of exploring the financial situation. He's not going to take everything back. And then something like this hits and you're like, yeah, well,
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying? Oh my god. Stop you fucking lying.
I mean-
basically now the fear is, okay, if Steph is out, maybe Triple H is next on the creative side to get
Well,
Vince back into television.
why don't you make the other point you told me before we came on here with Stephanie McMahon being out and the rumors of the Saudi wealth fund, public fund coming in? Can you put two and two together?
Right, because yeah, we'll get into the Saudi thing about how quick it was developing and whatnot, and yeah, maybe it sounds silly considering how quick it was going on, but the only thing is, if those talks are really happening, maybe no surprise that Stephanie is stepping down because, well, considers Saudi values and such.
I
Stephanie
mean-
McMahon is
Right.
a woman.
They don't disrespect. They don't respect women like we do. Unfortunately. So, and I hate talking about that, but
So,
unfortunately, that's the value.
Unfortunately, yeah. So there's that angle of it. All right. So now Vince is in power again as executive chairman. They are exploring all options. However, as I mentioned, Tuesday night on Wrestling Twitter was perhaps the most insane day in a while that I can really think of. And some people went as far, Nick, as to call it the darkest day. Had the reports been true, the darkest day that WWE had ever gone through since the Chris Benoit double murder suicide.
Even worse than the steroid scandal stuff.
Well, I said since. That was 90s.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, because they're talking about darkest days in wrestling, but
I mean, I don't know if I don't know. But it definitely, let's put it this way. If it's true that WWE, because obviously we have the mixed reports, so you had basically what happened was a lot of people on Twitter started, they did the big eye emojis saying, guys, monster news might be coming in, basically teasing, but like, oh, we don't know because we can't necessarily confirm. Then what happened was there was this Redditor. I don't know. I forget the full username, but I know it included the word perm in there. Who apparently has had, reported on some stuff on the Reddit sphere that has come true. So he was considered kind of on the inside, saying deal with Saudi Arabia is done. And then you saw Cassidy Haynes of Body Slam reporting it, and then Stephen Millhouse, who of the Zone, I think it is. I forget his full name. It's Steven something, but he's a DAZN writer, and basically both of them have said confirmed they followed up. WWE sold to Saudi Arabia, and ever since then we have had the chaos because it's multiple sources. Although then now ever since then you have guys like John Alba, Sean Ross Sapp, very big
that's the one I
Joseph
saw.
saying, okay, no, I have not heard anything of the sorts. I can't confirm. Sean Ross Sapp, however, did add that if a deal like that is true, the basically the reaction to those rumors were that of the talent were pissed off, and some would probably do a walkout like Sasha Banks and Naomi did.
Well, let me say one more thing. So
Mhm.
I said this to you before we started. Would you call the bluff of the WWE talent if they say they're going to walk out?
I think some might consider it a payday and say, okay, maybe not because, I have a family to feed. However, somebody like a Sami Zayn who is Syrian and won't get the same kind of respect and will basically be written off as somebody not human, like not even just but not human. Probably is gonna have to find some other employment. Kevin Owens, who is Sami Zayn's best friend, behind the scenes, been up and down the road with this guy for years and years. That they both basically started wrestling together, have been through the ups and downs, have been tag team partners on TV, have been feuding on TV. Does he show and also has big family values? Does he maybe walk with his best friend? Somebody actually pointed this out when Crown Jewel, the first ever Crown Jewel, happened in 2018, not long after the journalist got killed. You saw multiple big stars pulling out, one being John Cena. Now, John Cena only appears once or twice, wrestles one or two matches every year now. He's not a full-timer, he's a part-timer. But if the Saudi deal goes through, do we not see John Cena anymore on WWE television?
I think you're going to see all the big stars, even the ones that are attached to the WWE name, like the John Cenas or like The Rock. You might see them all disassociate with the WWE if they're completely bought by the Saudi Public Interest Fund. By the way, I think the name you were looking for was Mulhausen, Steve Mulhausen.
Steve Mulhausen, yeah.
Okay,
So
I just found it. Yeah.
ever since, by the way, for an update, as of Wednesday night, he has deleted his tweet. Cassie Haynes has not, and he and Body Slam have both put out a statement basically saying they stand by the story.
Which means that they know more than some people do.
Dave Meltzer, probably one of the most long tenured journalists when it comes to the professional wrestling industry and the MMA industry, basically on Figure 4 Radio, Wrestling Observer Radio, pardon me. He's gone a little splitsville. He hasn't confirmed it, but he has said he's thrown out the possibility of, in the months that Vince has been away from television, away from the product, in exile for his thing, could maybe he have been working on something behind the scenes away from the people, like your Triple H's, your Nick Khan's, your Stephanie's, because again, he is the majority stockholder.
He can do whatever he wants. I was starting to say this before. In financial terms, being the highest majority stake holder, just because he's not with the day-to-day operations doesn't mean he's not the majority stake. That's not affected. Unless you took the shares away and you gave him his money, he's still in charge. When Stephanie McMahon and his daughter took over and Nick Khan took over, they were essentially figureheads. They were not in charge. He said they were in charge because he had to make it look like he was not there or in the crosshairs where he could be seen. Behind the scenes, he probably was doing all the mastery or the puppet show, as they like to call it. So he was never technically gone.
And even if if he was gone with his power, that Saka, I see the possibility of maybe, and just because it's Vince, that's the thing. The fact that we can just say that we're not surprised if something quick happened like this hostile takeover in the Saudi State because it's Vince. And we know the dirty stuff he's done, all the dirty stuff that's come out over the years, especially when that whole scandal was going on, that basically he will, as you say, kind of bully his way into getting what he wants.
Right. And on top of that, I would also say that WWE already has a partial deal with the Saudi government, essentially,
to do the two events over the course of 10 years. So it's something like Super Showdown or any pay-per-view plus the Crown Jewel towards the end of the year.
Because I remember you dread that every year because of the time zone differences and everything that goes on when the fights are in.
I don't even really pay too much attention to the Saudi shows as much as they have occasionally some major title changes and stuff, because everyone's like, nobody likes this deal. The only people who really like this deal is Saudi Arabia.
I'll tell you right now, if and when this becomes official, the droppage is going to go up in a major number of people who are going to watch this. I think because
as Sean Ross Sapp has said that if this deal comes through, he can see a massive drop in people. All those people who were tuning back in because Triple H was heading creative, and it was the kind of vision that he had wanted. Because Triple H, when he was running NXT, all that how that was popular. He says all those people and probably more are going to go back away.
And the other thing is, a lot of the WWE content is subscribe only content. So,
well, I mean, you have the cable network, but like the pay-per-views, yeah, it's either you got to buy the pay-per-view or you got to subscribe to the network. And I'm wondering what could happen if, say, NBC Universal or Fox or one of these big wigs like your Netflix or Amazon or Disney purchase the WWE network. I mean, I don't think Disney would, but let's just consider ESPN Plus just because that's a platform I know best. I mean, they'll obviously have ESPN Plus where they can throw the network and all that content on. They could put the pay-per-views behind the ESPN Plus paywall, and God, I hope, if that ever came to fruition, it's not like the UFC where you have the two paywalls, the ESPN Plus and then the ESPN Plus pay-per-view just to watch the premium live events, as WWE calls them, like your Royal Rumbles, your WrestleManias.
who would call those fights on the ESPN platform, though?
It would be the WWE guys. They have like Michael Cole and Corey Graves.
What I'm saying is usually, like, did any of the Fox personalities or the NBC personalities get involved in the WWE stuff or no?
Not really. No, they just stick with their normal commentators.
So it's pretty much a platform. Is when they make the deal, it's a platform
It's a
showcase.
platform. Correct. But then I have to wonder if, say, it's Amazon or NBC Universal, even just NBC Universal. Say, could one of them make the decision of, okay, we'll do something unprecedented. We'll take, say, SmackDown, and we're gonna put it on the network. Like, you have to subscribe to watch a whole brand of WWE.
The other problem you're going to run into, say that this Saudi deal comes through, people ethically are not going to want to give their money to the Saudi government.
Right.
So I'll tell you right now, if it goes to the Saudi government, ethically, people are going to pull their money back and say, "I'm not giving it." So what happens to the product if it goes to the Saudi government? It goes down. Everyone gets affected. Everyone has no money.
Well, I mean, I think it's going to get affected even if Vince McMahon just comes back and truly is going to have creative. Because think about this. SummerSlam was basically, when Triple H first took power, obviously he had the Vince product there. Storylines were ongoing. So he's like, okay, I got to work with what I have. And then over the course of time, like SummerSlam was coming up. So he said, okay, that's going to be the first major point where I change it into my vision. And that's the other angle to this, Nick. That's so interesting is that it's January 12th. We're 2 weeks away from the Royal Rumble, which is the start of the road to WrestleMania, the big event that WWE consistently makes money off of. Now, granted, whatever they would get from the Saudi deal, maybe, a little more than what WrestleMania, because Saudis, of course, have the public interest in all this crazy money that they can just throw away that basically has started these rumors about them potentially buying the WWE. But just like what I'm trying to say is like the emphasis on that big mega event of WrestleMania, like that's just adding to the insanity because we're gonna make all these changes when WrestleMania is less than 3 months away.
But this is not a surprise, though. We've seen this happen in major sports before where, I mean, look at the NFL. Now it's a little different, but look at the NFL. Like they were moving teams, like they basically picked up St. Louis and moved it to LA, and then they moved them within 3 months. I mean, like it was. I know it's not the same lateral move,
not really the same.
but I'm just saying, like we've seen this happen in sports.
As far as walkouts go, by the way, in addition to Cena, Sami Zayn, maybe even Kevin Owens, I mean, we were just talking about how Stephanie McMahon may have needed to step down because you could potentially, I know they have had ever since, so that first ever Saudi event, they didn't have any women on the show, and ever since then, they've allowed 1 or 2 women's matches as long as the competitors were fully clothed. But like you could see, come on, you could see a good chunk of the women's roster basically saying adios.
I mean, they will lie to everybody and say, "Oh, well, we don't have those issues," and then as soon as
We're progressive.
we're a progressive country, okay, well, prove it. If you're a progressive country, then let the women fight and don't tell them what to wear. I mean, but I don't see that happening. This is a lose-lose situation if this ends up in the Saudi Public Interest Fund. And I was looking up the team. I think it was one of the United teams that's under the Saudi Public
Menu.
Interest Fund. But the only thing, and because like I said, you're not going to get the people paying for the product. The Saudi Public Interest Fund has billions of dollars. They're just going to keep funding it. They're not going to care if people are paying for it. WWE will just be funded, and then whoever the partners are. But that's the other issue you run into. The sponsors and the business partners that are involved with the WWE. If this becomes a Saudi run company,
What sponsors are going to pull out? You're right.
There's a whole lot of ethical and business issues. And if Vince, to me, it seems like Vince is selling out to the Saudi government.
I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. Now, you have had people kind of shoot it down. John Alba shot it down. Ariel Helwani shot it down. Now, here's the thing about because I know you sent me the Helwani thing, and you know how I feel about Helwani, great MMA journalist and whatnot. But here's the thing about Helwani. Don't forget, he also covers the WWE for BT Sport. He's kind of in bed with them, so him defending them is kind of
not a surprise.
Yeah, like that's not something that should be surprising. For them to say completely false, I mean, as one of my MMA media members have stated, don't forget something. In 2016, when the UFC was supposedly being sold to Endeavor, they said for the longest time it was completely false, up until an hour before the press release came out announcing that it had been sold.
See,
but granted, as I said before, they just hired JP Morgan, WWE and Vince just hired JP Morgan for a potential look of a sale. It couldn't have happened this quick unless what Meltzer is speculating is true, and that Vince was doing some work behind the scenes in his little absence.
See, I'm so tired of this BS, and it's not just WWE or companies have done this in the past. I'm so tired of this BS where they deny, and then like out of the blue, they're like, "All right, we just decided to sell now." No, you didn't. You knew you were going to sell. The WWE has probably known for over a year that they've been trying to sell it. They're just not admitting it. They know that they can't run the business with Vince the way it is. They're trying to sell this business to get out from under Vince. That's really what they're doing here. Just admit it. Admit that the power on the top of WWE is not working.
I mean, Nick, do you know the show Succession on, I think it's Showtime? There's the CEO and there's this whole conflict with his.
I saw that similarity coming up on Twitter.
This is Succession in real life.
That's interesting.
But it's just, I will say this. Number one, it's strange. It was already strange not having Vince McMahon running WWE for the 5 months or so he hasn't been there. And now just to think of the real possibility that there may be 0 McMahons as the head of WWE very soon.
Well, the one ironic thing I will say is Nick Khan somehow survived as the solo CEO of the WWE at the current moment.
Well, like I said in July when Vince had stepped down, he's done it. He has climbed up the Mortal Kombat ladder of McMahon's. Shane McMahon, Triple H all went down. Stephanie took her leave, and then Vince was ousted. Like he has done it within the span of 2 years. He went from hired to basically helping to run the entire company.
I mean, I was never a big fan of WWE over the years. I just find it interesting the way the business is run from the back end.
like I said, when the Vince thing happened, and with this, like I was pointing out with Federa when it happened several months ago, it's like about why nobody took the Vince thing seriously. Not because it's wrestling, it's the sideshow. Even though, as you can see, there's a lot of humanity behind it, bad humanity, and there's a lot of business behind it. I will also add, Nick, about morals and ethics and stuff. So basically, WrestleMania this year, like my first full calendar year of being obsessed WWE fan was '02 to '03. So coming up on the 20th anniversary, basically, of the end of my first year as a big fan.
Wow.
If Vince truly is selling out to the Saudis, if that report really is true, I am going to be one of those. Like, I will ride out my last road to WrestleMania, and then that's it.
Yeah, because there's a whole ethics thing that goes on if the Saudi takes over.
hmm Which
And
also then goes back to something I had said when the Vince thing originally hit about boycotting and such. Now it's good to say maybe some of these companies that we don't know may be taking Saudi money, or not on the Peacock end of things. It's like, okay, I'm going to unsubscribe from Peacock. Well, unfortunately, because they own the WWE network. Unfortunately, let's say you have a joint account or you have your own account. Well, that means you're also gonna screw yourself out of any of the NBC shows that you like. This is, as you said, Nick, this is a very big lose-lose situation if WWE falls into the Saudis' hands.
like I said, it's a whole ethics violation. Even though you really can't say that until it happens, but it's an ethical problem. It's a financial problem. We all know the history. We've talked about this with soccer many times. How the whole thing with the World Cup and the issues that we had across those territories. I mean, heck, we did a story at the end of 2022 with why am I forgetting his name all of a sudden? The writer who passed away.
Grant Wall.
Grant Wall, for doing his job and just east these eastern territories don't accept people. And that's the same issue you're going to run into if this becomes Saudi territory. And here's the other issue. So say the Saudi Public Interest Fund buys the WWE. Are they going to try to get the stuff in the US?
Well, I know there were reports that maybe that would mean they're gonna have try to get more of the premium live events in Saudi Arabia. However, I think they're going to realize. I think it was Cultaholic who was talking about this. They're gonna realize soon, like, yeah, well, you need. It was either Cultaholic or Sean Ross Sapp. I forget who, but somebody said, yeah, well, they're gonna soon realize that, that's not gonna be as profitable as WWE does, where you have the tapings in the different U.S. arenas. You have the non-televised events, the big house shows on the weekends on Saturday and non-pay-per-view Sunday nights.
Right.
They're going to need to have, some sort of US presence.
But that's the problem, though. If Saudi Arabia buys this out, what U.S. company is going to want to do business with them? Think about the whole LIV tour. Has any U.S. media company gotten in bed with the Live tour?
I like what you said, because that's been a constant point that Fightful and Cultaholic have all brought up. LIV, where's their US television deal?
And by the way, where's the Live tour gone? They've disappeared also. So that they can pay the golfers as much as they want, but are they getting any attention in the U.S.? No. I mean, they're doing events here, but does anyone care? No, because they don't want to be. What's that term Nick Ferrera used with the money?
They don't want basically blood money.
And like I at the time I said that was a little insensitive, but now when you look at it, it's different.
Well, here's the interesting angle to this, Nick. Vince McMahon and some of his television has been the most pro-Americana thing when it comes to stuff like this. Like, I mean, think about professional wrestling as a whole, Nick. The foreign heel trope. somebody from the Middle East or Russia who comes across as this terror and a big villain. Like we have seen Vince McMahon do so much pro Americana and putting down other countries in spite of the fact it's a very big global brand, WWE. And now it's gonna fall into the hands of the Saudi government. Doesn't that make Vince McMahon a very big hypocrite?
Yes, and also there's one name that I think of, and he was really more of a joke personality as a talent, WWE, and he became more well known on the Howard Stern show, the Iron Sheik.
Yeah.
And I don't know what is his nationality?
Iranian.
And like people were making a big deal about that on Twitter the past couple of days also. Like, would he be able to do anything with WWE if they end up in Saudi Arabia?
Well, I mean, he doesn't really do anything with WWE anyways these days. He's just mostly known for the Twitter account and his tirades on Botchamania.
I mean, don't get me wrong, he's funny on social media and all that stuff. I don't know if he was ever associated with the WWE.
Oh, he used to be. He's a legend. He's a Hall of Famer. He's the one who dropped the championship to Hulk Hogan when Hulk Hogan first had Hulkamania.
So I'm just saying, like, there's a whole lot of ethical issues and business that's going to be affected if this goes through.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack with this. There's been so much, and like we are 50 minutes into our program, and we have only, like there's still more angles that we could talk about. But
by the way, this has to be a record.
for the longest amount of time we've talked WWE on this show.
And there's still a lot more to come, so we might as well get to it.
Yeah. So, Carlos Correa. Third time's the charm, I guess. So...
Look at all the failure!
So, after his second deal falls through, that deal being one with the New York Mets, he has now signed a 6-year, $200 million deal just to go back to the Minnesota Twins.
Now, my question is, or I shouldn't say my question, my statement is, when he goes to that press conference, let's see if he actually gets to a press conference this time, unlike with the San Francisco Giants, where he had a 12-year, 300, or was it 13 years, 350 million.
Yeah.
And everyone is saying he's going to say, oh, I wanted to be here the whole time. No, you didn't. You didn't want to be here the whole time. You were going to take the $350 million deal with San Francisco. Then they found that your leg or knee or whatever it was a nightmare. They canceled the press conference. They let you go. Then the Mets and their drunken sailor owner, Steve Cohen, steps in and says, I'm here for the rescue. And they signed him for what? 12 years, $315 million. And then you're like, all right, they signed. Now pending physical, which we don't think of that phrase as like a weird thing very often.
Right. But then he goes and fails a physical for the second time, and it's like, what the hell is going on?
And then on top of that, they're like, all right, let's try and work it out. And we see reports that apparently Steve Cohen's trying to get these like very weird clauses put into the contract, which we never knew what they were. They never told us anything. And then all of a sudden we hear the Twins are back in it and other teams are back in it. And we're like, this is not good.
All I'm going to say is, and I think Tree kind of posted it on Twitter. It's like that Simpsons thing where Homer has it on it's on Homer's board before he changed it to do it for her with all the photos from Maggie about why his motivation for working. But it's like when you uncover everything, it says, "You are here forever."
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, in all fairness, though, $200 million is still a hell of a lot of money.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't want to hear any complaining or sympathy for this man. He made $200 million. Well, what was also left out of this is that it could be up to $270 million with other options involved. So technically, it could be up to $270 million. So I wouldn't be complaining. Now, the Mets apparently offered him 6 years, 200 something million plus and 4 years on the side incentive for another 105. But apparently,
it just makes me wonder about what those clauses were.
well, those last 4 years were not guaranteed. But I don't know about those other clauses, but that means a lot that Scott Boras turned down a potential an extra $105 million for him to go to the Twins for a 6-year, $200 plus $70 million deal.
Well, at this point, it's just like, let's just get a deal done. I loved how the Mets just made a 13-word statement, by the way. It's like, well, we couldn't work out a deal, and we wish them the best.
What was that, Steve Cohen's statement?
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, Carlos Correa is a good player, but now it makes me question like what went on in Houston even more, that he's hurt and all that nonsense.
Well, supposedly it was something from the minor leagues that the Twins apparently had no problem with, and then everything else they were fine with.
They already had the physicals and the medical work anyway, technically, when they signed him last offseason. So I don't know what changed between now and then, but I don't know. It's baseball news in a non-baseball time when no one cares about baseball. So
Well, most of the free agency, actually, this was actually a pretty good free agency period. Things happened fast and quick, and a whole bunch of money got thrown around, and it was something else.
you mean the owners actually cared?
Well, like I kind of implied when we were talking about Judge's free agency, this is one of those years. So we saw a few years where the owners were kind of in control, and now that the CBA got worked out and the big money started to get thrown around, like once that deal with who was it that went to the Rangers? DeGrom.
Well,
Like
DeGrom, yeah.
once that deal happened, and once the Turner deal, the 11 years would have happened, like at that point, it's like, okay, players are in control at this point. Like all the money's gonna fly, all the years are gonna fly off. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, you knew when the Rangers spent a ton of money in the offseason.
I told you
That-
they were gonna be desperate for an ace.
No, but it wasn't just that. They spent money on other pitchers and other players. Like, by the way, DeGrom's an idiot. I haven't admitted that yet, but DeGrom's an idiot for walking away from the Mets. But you know what it is? Texas has no. I think they have the least amount of taxes also on the money,
Which
so
definitely helps.
which helps. But you really went to a team that's got no aspirations for playoff future. I mean, come on.
All right, let's talk about Naomi Osaka. So Naomi Osaka is supposed to compete in the Australian Open. We have seen her struggle with her mental health, and then 2 weeks before the start of the Australian Open, she announces that basically she has some setbacks of her mental health and she needs to take another step back. That is so that story originally, that's how the story was originally. Like I said, when we recorded that non-released promo that basically goes to lost media because everything got flipped upside down on its head, including the day of our show. And now, several hours before we sat down and started recording, Naomi Osaka announces she's pregnant. As a result, that means she is going to be out of competition for all of 2023 and potentially stretching into 2024.
All right. See, now I got to be careful with the words I choose because of this news coming out. But up until this point, she's been using her mental health situation as an excuse not to get back on the court. I know that's harsh. I know a lot of people are not going to be happy that I said it. But she's been just stepping back and back and back to the point where people were like, well, where are you? You were supposed to be one of the top women tennis players, and then you disappear. We talked about this at the whole French Open situation where she couldn't handle talking to the media, and then she walked away from the media, and then supposedly she was supposed to be in trouble because she didn't talk to the media, and should she be fined and all that nonsense. And then Nike and all of them said we'll pay the fine, which they probably shouldn't have because that's kind of empowering the athlete instead of making sure they're held responsible. But
I think you need a balance between responsibility and empowering. Uh, yeah, I'm not going to be as harsh as you. First of all, congratulations to Naomi
yeah,
for
absolutely. Congrats on the pregnancy, but she has not handled everything so well timeline wise up until this point.
Well, here's what I'm gonna say. Am I gonna go as far as you as to say, oh, she's using it as a crutch and whatnot? Probably not. But I am going to say that considering all that she already had accomplished in a short time when it comes to tennis and the struggles, like I get the struggles that athletes will have to go to with the pressure of, say, peers, the pressure of on yourself, the pressure on with the media. Now, granted, the whole thing about not speaking to the media has its own issues about, access to athletes and whatnot have you. But bottom line is going to be this. I completely understand if Naomi Osaka is struggling with her mental health. God bless her for what she'll have to put up with. However, if that is the case, maybe there is a conversation that she needs to have with herself and her loved ones about if she really should be out there playing tennis ever again. I think you had mentioned on our Sunday night meeting, Nick, she's still going to be making 50 something million dollars.
She made $59 million in 2022. She's got more than enough endorsements. She's also a partner in an agency with LeBron James that just signed the number one female woman tennis player in the world to the agency.
So what I'm going to say is then, if those other things are not going to be affected by her potentially stepping away, I mean, granted, we're not going to see her in tennis for a little while now again anyway because she's going to have a child. But maybe this is the point. Maybe now that she is going to have a child, she takes this step back, really focuses on herself, focuses on bringing the new baby into the world, and then really has the conversation with herself about, should I come back? Like you said, if none of those other ventures are going to be affected by her stepping away, and I don't mean stepping away because of the pregnancy, I mean stepping away in never appearing in tennis again as an active player. If none of that gets affected and she's still going to be making in millions of dollars, maybe it wouldn't hurt to step away and not have to deal with all of that pressure. She's already accomplished what more than other people have accomplished.
Right. I mean, look at Serena. I mean, she's made millions of dollars off the court. Now, she won't say she's retired. She's technically retired. She just doesn't want to say it. She had her kid. She was never the same tennis player again, never the same type of athlete again. She worked really hard to get back on the court. She just is not the same athlete. Now, she's a lot older than Naomi Osaka is, but when you have kids and you have a lot more different aspirations, Serena's the same way. She's got a lot of off the court aspirations, a lot of businesses off the tennis court that she's making so much money on that tennis almost is not the primary moneymaker anymore. But I feel like for Naomi Osaka, and I'm trying to look up how old she is because she's got to be in like her early 20s if I'm not mistaken.
Naomi Osaka is 25.
Yeah, she's young, like really young. I don't know. And maybe you have a different opinion on this than I do. I feel like we're seeing it a lot more with younger athletes today that the anxiety and the pressure is getting to them more than it used to.
I don't know how to feel. I'm thinking about it. It's like, yeah, and I mean, is it because that we're a little more aware, like the younger generations are a little more aware and concerned about their mental health rather than, say, older generations? Or is it the crutch argument? Because I can say from my experiences in my job outside of here, there does seem to be a lot more youth who are diagnosed with mental health disorders, a lot more than when we were in school, a lot more than when the generations before us were growing up. And again, is that, do will people use that as a crutch? Unfortunately, you're right, people will use that as a crutch. Is Naomi Osaka one of those people? I don't know. I don't
Tough to
personally know.
say.
It's tough to. I don't know Naomi Osaka. Like I say, no. I want to say no because there is, a level of pressure that we don't really discuss all too much when it comes to athletes. You know, the pressure and the pretty much how the internal pressure when it comes to putting the pressure on yourself about performance and that others, including sponsors, coaches, spectators, whatnot, put on you. Uh, but as I also said that there does seem to be within the younger generations. I don't know if it's a lot more, a lot more diagnoses with mental health or more concern about mental health, the crutch, or some form of combination of all three. All I know is I think Naomi Osaka needs to take some time and like I said, need to have a discussion with herself about what is best for me and what is best for my mental health.
I feel like also when she started that mental health break, like it kept getting extended and extended and extended, and it kept getting pushed out to the point where, like, I'm watching her during the mental health break, and I'm like, does she really want to play tennis again? Like, does she really want to compete as an athlete? She came back, she played a few matches, didn't look like herself, throwing rackets, getting angry at people.
And sometimes, Nick, that kind of stuff can happen where you're just not yourself. I mean, so obviously with us being in New York with the Giants and such, remember Matt Dodge, who
Yes,
made that very infamous punt to Deshaun Jackson, cost the Giants a playoff spot in the
yeah,
2010 NFL season. Basically, after he lost his job to, was it Merriweather Mayweather, whatever his name was, in
yeah.
the start of the 2011 season. Dodge had tryouts for a couple more years, a couple different teams. And apparently, according to an interview with Dodge, one day somebody, like a coach, had asked him, like, do you really want this? And he basically had to answer with himself, like, no, I don't. I don't want to do this anymore. And being able to step away from the NFL, Dodge said, was perhaps the most, relief he ever felt. And now he's actually doing okay in the quote unquote real world. But so that's why I'm saying maybe Naomi Osaka needs to have a conversation about if she wants to continue being in this high pressure world of sports and whatnot. And honestly, if she doesn't want to anymore, fine with her. Like I said, there, for all that she accomplished, where she defeated one of the Williams sisters. I remember when we covered her defeating one of the Williams sisters, becoming one of the top tennis stars in the world. And that was only several years ago. Like, she was in her really young 20s at that point. Like, within that,
She was the number one player in the world for a few years.
right, in that short span, she has done more than quite a lot of tennis players can say that they have done. So if this truly is, like, do I think I'll say it. I don't think we ever see Naomi Osaka compete in tennis ever again. At least not to the level that we have seen it. But if that's the decision that she's gonna make, fine. She's made her mark.
I mean, so just for perspective, like I said, she made $59 million last year, 2022. Prize money she's made as a tennis player over 21 million. So she's made so much money, and when you're at the top echelon of tennis, you're going to get those sponsors. When Serena and Venus were the top of the game, they got every sponsor, they got every business opportunity. So did Naomi. Naomi had plenty of opportunities as being the top tennis player in the world. I don't have a problem with her with the pregnancy and everything. The way I have a problem with the way she handled the timelines of everything, and the way, because again, Remember, I had said to you a few days ago when we planned for this that, she pulled out of the Australian Open. There was no reason. So I kept saying to myself, oh my God, how much longer are we going to extend this mental health sit out? Because to me, it seemed like she just didn't want to play. And the one last thing I'll say is, I told you about the interview she did with Robin Roberts on GMA, where Robin asked Naomi, like, are you ever going to come back on the court? And she basically said, I'm a naturally curious person, referring to the off the court stuff. That's not the answer you want to hear if you're expecting her to play tennis.
Well, like I said, that's what ultimately led me to say probably never going to come back.
Because she was on there like promoting a children's book that she put out, and she's got all these fragrances, and she's got this other stuff, and she's got the agency with LeBron James. Her interests have gone away from tennis. That's it. It's over.
All right. Start to get into the other headlines of this week. I hate putting this in the other headlines category but it's just with so much that, like, I hate that it took us a whole hour, 10 minutes to get. But
so basically, to kind of reel this back in a little bit.
Yeah.
So you heard it at the intro at the top of the show. Since we're a weekly show, I try to sum everything back up to catch up where we were at. What you heard in the intro was how everything went down the night. How long ago was that now? 2 weeks?
Yeah. The collapse was on January 2nd.
Okay. Oh, so it was a little over a week ago. Okay. So week and a half. So you brought up how ESPN did an amazing job behind the scenes handling that situation. I kind of did a contrast where you talk about the amazing job ESPN did, and I talked about the stupidity of people who don't know how to have a proper opinion. Let me take that back. Not proper opinion. What?
Oh, man.
Yes.
Oh, man.
But yes, so you covered the journalistic angle. I covered the stupidity angle of people who don't think before they write. So now that we're a week and a half out, what do you think about everything that's gone on since?
That this is one of the greatest recoveries, one of the greatest miracles that we have seen in professional sports. How a man basically was clinically dead on the field and was resuscitated back with the help of the phenomenal teams over with the medical staffs of the Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals. And then just the outpouring of support from his toy drive to what we saw this past weekend with Week 18, the number 3 outlines on all the stadiums at the 30-yard line, the rounds of applauses, those shows of support from all home crowd, all 16 home crowds, as we were getting ready for all the different NFL matchups this past weekend, to Nyheim Hines pulling off what will go down as one of the greatest plays in NFL history. Very first play since Hamlin had been hospitalized. And he takes it, opening kickoff, takes it all the way for a touchdown, and then does something very similar in the third quarter. And apparently the reports were that Hamlin was watching from the hospital room and was jumping up and down. It was just so excited that
he set alarms off inside the hospital. This is no joke. He set alarms off in the hospital where the doctors had to come in and check because he was so jumping up off the walls when he saw both plays. I mean, by the way, just to give you an update, because I pulled up the GoFundMe, $8,778,000.
Unbelievable.
I mean, by the way, do you remember what the original goal was on the GoFundMe?
$5,000.
$2,500.
$2,500.
$2,500 was the goal. It's almost at 8.8 million. Think about that. It's crazy. But just the way this whole situation went. So when we last left, he was still in the Cincinnati hospital. He works his way through. They got him to 50%. Then they got him to 100% breathing without the breathing tube.
Talking with his teammates on FaceTime before the game against the Patriots, the unbelievable game against the Patriots that they had.
Then a couple more days go by. Then he's released. And then he goes to the Buffalo. Right. And ends up at the Buffalo Hospital. And then basically he got released, a day or two after?
Yeah, but it's either, I think it's been 24 hours before we recorded. He's home.
So now, obviously, you're not going to see him the rest of this postseason, obviously.
I don't know. I don't know if we see him play ever again, but like I said, I think I said it last week. There's got to be at least some sort of coaching position if this really is the end of his career.
You might see him at the games, though.
Absolutely. Like I even said it, that they're going to ride his momentum. He is going to be their biggest piece, even though he's not suiting up for games.
If they make the Super Bowl, you bet your ass they're going to fly him out there to be there as a motivational piece.
And I will repeat what I said last week. And we're going to talk about our predictions. Like we have the wild card weekend, we'll predict that, and then we'll give our predictions of the rest of the playoffs from there. My prediction is what it is. I said it last week. I think the Bills are really going to ride his momentum to a Super Bowl championship, to their first Super Bowl title.
I mean, even before that, I still thought they were one of the top teams in all the NFL. We all did.
You're right.
So, but let's just say Buffalo didn't need any more extra motivation. Now, let me say one thing. This is one of the worst, unfortunate ways to have motivation to your team. But I just think Buffalo was already on a high. Now that he's out of the hospital and he's functional. Now, he's still got a long road to go. But it's positive.
Right. I mean, just from where we were that Monday night, getting the fears that potentially the worst could have happened that night or the day after, to seeing where he is now is unbelievable. And, goes to demonstrate the power that, being prepared, like the medical staffs were both on the field and at the hospitals, like what they have done.
And people forget also that they trained for this. I think I brought this up a couple episodes ago. That if they were not trained, that would not have gone as smoothly as it did. Now, they said he was technically out, medically for 16 minutes. Now, I think I said also technically he couldn't have been out 16 minutes or else he wouldn't be alive.
CPR.
Right. But I'm saying, like, he was medically down for 16 minutes. And I don't think in our lifetime, again, we'll ever see something where the whole team formed a white wall around him and the medical personnel. We've never seen that before.
No. And here's hoping we never have to deal with, like I said, when it came to the NFL rescheduling and all the madness and whatnot, just to put up with that, and then just here's hoping we never have to deal with anything like this ever again.
No. And Joe Buck and Troy Aikman and the rest of the ESPN crew, that's probably not something you practice for either. At all. So everything. And also, I was talking to Johnny and Hank from Game On the other day. I don't know. Did you see what happened in the Buffalo Sabres game?
What happened?
That one of the guys had a hat trick.
Oh, and they
were also saying like there was something happened with like 3 minutes and 33 seconds left, and it was like a whole thing with a bunch of threes.
Well, it was did you see the Nyheim Hines? It had been 3 months and 3 days since their last kickoff return for a touchdown.
there was like total symmetry between threes.
Mhm.
And I don't think you make that. That's not made up by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think. So
Before we get into the another news sections, I have an update to the Vince McMahon story, element that actually was not brought up. A class action lawsuit has been launched against Vince McMahon, according to various sources, including Bloomberg. A shareholder is suing Vince McMahon in Delaware's Chancery Court, accusing him of wielding 81% voting control to oust 3 board members and replace them with his loyalists and push through changes that would, quote, impose his will on the board and WWE. This shareholder is basically saying he's controlling his will illegally, inciting all sorts of board changes and the threats to interfere with media rights, that basically he was being a bully. Now, on a side note, if the Chancery Court in Delaware sounds familiar, this is the court that forced Twitter to go through with Elon Musk's acquisition.
do you remember that actually? Now what they're referring to is, by the way, there's a difference between voting control and what you own as a shareholder. So the board can decide to give Vince whatever voting control over what they want. But
Right. I think this. No, I think what this is. I know what you're saying, and I know we talked about the shareholder and his power. I think what this shareholder is basically saying is that him being able to strong arm his way back in and threat using the threat of, I will block any potential sale was illegal, basically.
right. I mean, it's going to take a lot to prove it, though.
Yeah, I was gonna say I could see this easily being thrown out. Just an update that should have been thrown in that I had come to see it. All right, let's talk about our smaller headlines. Yeah, national championship really sounds like it should be a bigger headline, but yeah, that's actually no. I got a better way. No, hang on. I got a better way. This one, this was bad. Ladies and gentlemen of the audience, this was awful. This was one of the worst games I've ever seen in my life.
I mean, this was so bad. I was like,
stay off the weed. Duh.
It was 17-7 at the end of the first quarter. It was 39-7. I mean 38-7 at the end of the half.
okay, you made it sound like it was a lot worse because you said you turned it off after the first quarter. 17-7 isn't that bad.
It isn't that bad, but I don't know. I just saw the play, like how much Georgia was controlling the game. I think they had a couple of turnovers within the first 10 minutes of the game at that point already.
If you had said you turned it off at the half when it was 38-7, I would have said, okay, that I get. But and then forget it. Like the game was a blowout after that.
Okay, well listen to my defense. So here are the drives. Ready? Georgia kicks off to TCU. They go. It should have been 3 and out, but there was actually a penalty, so it went from 1st and 10 to 1st and 15. They got to 4th and 12, and then they were forced to punt. Georgia scores a touchdown. TCU's next drive, I believe, actually is there's a. It just says recovered by. Okay, there was a fumble basically. And Georgia took it back. Field goal by Georgia. TCU drive again. There's the touchdown by TCU. Georgia with a touchdown and extra point. And then in the first quarter, going to start the second quarter, they were forced out again. It just seemed like the momentum. I actually think there was a second fumble that TCU managed to recover. But point is, I just saw a lot, Georgia just controlling a lot, and it didn't seem like it was going to end in anything but a Georgia victory. Now, I don't think any of us expected 65-7 between two of the best teams in college football this year. And
Largest margin of victory in the national championship ever.
And this really makes me feel that much more sad that Michigan had that really shitty first half against TCU that cost them the game.
Yeah, but who knows if Michigan would have beat Georgia? I mean,
No, but I think maybe we could have had a more competitive matchup.
I agree with you, but and I had said it when we previewed the game. TCU had no playoff experience, really. Georgia won last year, and now Georgia's pulled off back-to-back national titles for the first time since Alabama in 2011, 2012, which ironically Nick Saban was in the building doing halftime and pregame with ESPN, which, by the way, ESPN stole the show during the game with David Pollack, basically calling Nick Saban out, saying that Georgia's the best team in college football. And the facial expressions were hilarious. But Stetson Bennett, 6 touchdowns. I think it was 4 throwing, 2 rushing, and just domination. 13:25 left in the fourth quarter. Stetson Bennett was removing his chin strap and sitting on the bench.
I wonder. I know Stetson Bennett's 25. I wonder who's going to take the chance on the 25-year-old quarterback coming out of college. I think somebody will take him. It definitely won't be in the first round, though. Unless somebody gets really quarterback desperate, I think we see him second, third round get drafted.
Hey, if that were the case, and I don't know if this was on our rundown or not, but the Bears.
Chicago Bears did earn the number 1 pick because the Texans won their last game because you play to win the game. And maybe if we put the tinfoil hats on, go to our conspiracy routes, that maybe Lovie Smith, after his conversations with Texans Brass, decided, well, if I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out with a victory, even if it means ruining the tank.
By the way, that was the quickest firing I've ever seen after a game. Would you agree?
Well, like I said, they had conversations over that weekend, so maybe Lovie had an inkling of what was going on. And you know what's funny? He was part of the Bears organization before.
I know. Was he part of the team that won the Super Bowl?
Let me double check.
I could have sworn he was. But
the Bears, he was the head coach of the Chicago Bears from 2004 to 2012.
That means I think he was on during the Super Bowl win, no, wasn't it? They
didn't win, but they went to the Super Bowl. Yes, he was part of that. For some reason, I was thinking of their 80-something title. I'm like, wait, no.
Who did they play?
No. I think they lost to the Colts.
Oh my God, was that was a Peyton Manning year then, right?
Yeah, that was the 2006 season, 2007 Super Bowl.
Jeez, a long time ago now.
Make me feel old.
Yeah, really. Lovie Smith got an unfair shake. Just like who was the older guy that they had in there before? Cutlery or Cully. Yeah.
But I think that obviously maybe Lovie was in a little over his head, but I'm gonna say something that Tree said in his Week 18 recap where he was doing the Black Monday stuff. I mean, and we'll talk about Black Monday in just a second, but do you really want to be the franchise, even if Lovie Smith, deserved to be fired? Do you really want to be the franchise that has just fired 2 or 3 head coaches within a 2-year span?
No.
Who's gonna want to come work for your organization?
Someone who's desperate to be a coach.
Right.
If you think Sean Payton's coming there, for trying.
I doubt it. You ever see the meme from that video game where it's like hit X of the X button? Yeah, I'm gonna hit that X button.
I mean, the Texans are a dumpster fire organization. Their ownership is bad. They've had issues in the top flight of their organization. They had part of the Deshaun Watson issues when they started. It's not a well-run organization.
Let's talk about we got to head into the sad category again. So, Liam Hendriks, we won't be seeing him for some time on the baseball diamond, announcing that he has developed cancer.
this kind of got buried. Like I found it on Instagram of all places, and I was like, "Oh, okay." Now we've seen ball players with cancer before. John Lester, who now if it goes on that timeline, he's probably going to miss a full season of baseball if he has to go through chemo and
The Liam Hendriks is to undergo treatment for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
that's what Lester had.
Yeah.
And Lester missed. Actually, I think Lester missed a little more than a year, if I'm not mistaken.
And I'm hoping that, like how Lester was able to overcome it, that Liam Hendriks can have the same kind of successful fight.
It's a tough spot to be in because when you're an athlete, like you think you're like an invincible person at times, that nothing can happen to you. Well, it's proven time and time again that cancer is not. I don't know what's that phrase they use.
They know no boundaries. They don't know a skin color. They don't know a gender.
Right.
It's illness attacks everybody.
Right. So hopefully he gets over it and he recovers and he plays baseball again. Now, unfortunately, with cancers, we know that even when you get into remission, unfortunately, there's odds that it comes back. And hopefully he's able to get past it and be a good pitcher again. So,
on the football side, unfortunately, Peyton Hillis, he is also in critical condition.
This got buried too.
After pulling off an absolutely heroic act in saving his kids from drowning.
Yeah, this got buried for some reason. And after the whole thing that happened with Damar, you would think that this would get a little more attention because I think he literally jumped into a pool to save his kids. And no one is talking about this at all. Like, hello?
Last report I have as a result of it. The last report I have as an update, as of the time we're recording this, he's still in intensive care. There's major concerns about his kidneys. Yeah,
Right, because he basically took in water. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some real big kidney concerns.
I don't get this. No one is talking about this at all. I mean, how long have we spent on not that I'm saying anything bad.
50 minutes.
What?
50 minutes on the WWE stuff.
No. I wasn't talking about that. I'm saying, how long have we spent on Damar?
Oh, last week we dedicated the whole first hour of the show to him, and maybe a little more.
But I'm saying, like, we've spent the last 2 weeks over social media covering this whole thing. Like, we're not even talking about this. This guy saved his kids.
I think maybe because of the fact that Damar is a current player, Peyton's not. But I mean, you're right. This is a heroic action. This is something that, if he unfortunately passes from this, he passes away a hero. But he is a hero regardless of what happens next. The fact that he was willing to take his own life, the fact that he was willing to put his own life on the line for the sake of just anybody, especially his kids, that's definition of heroism.
So
example of heroism.
Right. So reportedly, he saved one of his children and the child of another family member from drowning in the Gulf of Mexico off the Pensacola beach. So this wasn't just, I thought it was a pool. This is literally in the Gulf of Mexico. Like, that's real shit right there. That, like, in a pool, like, at least you're in a surrounded area.
This is actually reminding me of Shad Gaspard, who's a former WWE superstar who passed away in 2020, saving his own child. They were at a beach and his son was drowning and he drowned saving his son.
Actually, ironically, I just found an update from the Peyton Hillis story. This person said, I don't know who this is from, but it says, I just wanted to update everyone. Peyton is off the ventilator and doing great. God has truly blessed us, and we couldn't be more thankful. Peyton still has a long road of recovery ahead, so please continue to pray. But wanted to update everyone with this happy news. So he's off the ventilator.
I didn't see that update. I hope that's the truth. I hope that's the truth that he's off the ventilator and is starting to recover. If that's true, that's another miracle in itself.
Yeah, which no one was talking about.
This is a little buried, but we gotta say goodbye to one of the greatest NFL defensemen of our time period, J.J. Watt, calling it a career.
Yeah, this man has done everything for the sport on the field and off the field.
I think especially more off the field. He is.
This man.
I think if there is a Walter Payton career achievement award,
Lifetime.
I think J.J. Watt should have that.
You're talking about like a Walter Payton Lifetime Achievement Award in the sense?
Yeah, like a lifetime achievement. I said career achievement because I'm referring to just the career that he had.
Yeah, but I would say his is like a lifetime achievement. The way he, for most people who don't know, when he was with the Texans, when they had the massive storms, where did they take place again in Texas?
Was it the hurricane from 2017?
I think so. I can't remember.
The Hurricane Harvey?
Yeah, I think it was Hurricane Harvey. He basically, and I think we covered it way back when too.
Mhm.
Like, he raised like $23 or $25 million for the efforts, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Like, it was unbelievable. He managed to basically pay for most of the damages through his charity foundation.
So here I have a little thing about his his philanthropy efforts. He has the J.J. Watt Foundation. He's raised he's raised millions of dollars to benefit schools and charities in places like Texas, Wisconsin, schools in Alabama, Illinois.
I found it. He raised $41.6 million for Hurricane Harvey. Raised, not just out of his pocket.
Right. He's raised $37 million for Hurricane Harvey, surpassing his goal of $200,000. That's
incredible.
And also when it comes to tragedy, like Santa Fe high school shooting in May of 2018, he offered to pay for the funerals of the deceased.
I remember that.
He did the same for the 6 people left dead in the Waukesha Christmas parade attack in 2021. He helped invite out some of the families that were affected as a result of the Sandy Hook Elementary school shooting. He has done stuff with a lot of children and children's hospitals, raising money for those in need, as he kind of implied. And then, of course, we can't forget about his achievements on the field. And they read he never, unfortunately, was able to get a Super Bowl, but I mean, they read like a really, really nice novel. 10 years with the Texans, 2 years with the Cardinals, the number 11 pick of the 2011 NFL Draft, 2017 Walter Payton Man of the Year, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, 5-time First Team All-Pro, 2-time Second Team All-Pro, 5-time Pro Bowler, the sack leader in the 2012 and 2015 season, the co-leader of forced fumbles in the 2018 season, all-decade team of the 2010s for the NFL, Sports Illustrated Sportsman of the Year in 2017. He will go out as the record holder for seasons with 20-plus sacks with 2, and NFL record holder also having 2 seasons leading the league in sacks.
Yeah, he will go down as one of the greatest players in the NFL without a title.
And just one of the greatest defensemen ever, period.
Now, like I said, he's not just on the field, off the field as well, just very well-rounded as an individual, raised well as a human being. I think you'll see those that off the field work continue when he's done playing. He just had a newborn, I think. So he can now spend time with the child. By the way, 12 years is a lot in the NFL. When they say the average career is what, 3 to 4 at most. So 12 years is a lot. Like he really has nothing to complain about, and he got hurt in between.
He got hurt quite a bit, and he still accomplished all that he accomplished.
I remember like he made the contraption around the arms fashionable. Do you remember? Like that huge, what was it, like an elbow / like arm guard that went all the way down the. I don't know how he played with that, but somehow he made it work. But yeah, he will be a Hall of Famer. I forgot how long is it? Is it 4 or 5 years after
something like that? But yeah, can't win the first opportunity that comes up. Canton's going to call his name.
That's not even a doubt.
All right, Black Monday. We already covered Lovie Smith, but there is another coach that was also fired. Kliff Kingsbury of Arizona was fired, and Arizona also fired its general manager, Steve Kine, who was actually out on medical leave, and he's just not going to return.
I don't even think he technically got fired. I think he walked away on his own.
Yeah, walked away on his own. I would think that basically there was some sort of agreement, like, hey, let's just part ways.
You walk away, we'll call it medical. Not that I'm fooling around with someone's health,
but as far as Kliff Kingsbury goes, though, there were people like Tree who predicted he would be a disaster in the NFL.
I thought he was going to get fired like 3-4 weeks ago. I really did.
I'm surprised he made it to the end of the season as well.
But you know what he's saying, though? There's one thing that he's going to be saying. Because his severance package, as Hank and Johnny like to say on Game On, his severance package goes all the way to 2027. Because stupidly,
they signed him to an extension.
They signed him to an extension through 2027.
Just like they did with signing Kyler to an extension, I think.
All right, but that's on the field. But with a coach,
but I don't know. But it's funny because like he got fired from Texas Tech right before he became the Arizona coach.
Yes. But yeah, you're signed to 2027. You just get fired. Now basically you sit, collect checks while doing nothing. I think he'll end up back in college somewhere, just like Matt Rule did.
Probably.
Now Matt Rule had 85 million. I think Kingsbury has like 37 or 38. So
yeah, so those are the only 2 coaches fired on Black Monday, but we did see 3 other coaches fired. We have talked about it during the show. Matt Rule, we've mentioned getting fired very early on in the season, and credits to the Panthers for overcoming and getting as close as they did to the. Granted, the NFC South was a very weak division, but getting as close as they did even after firing him. Frank Reich got fired earlier in the season, which has also led us to the Jeff Saturday experiment.
Which, by the way, Chris Ballard, the GM of the Colts, is basically, hey, well, Jeff Saturday's going to be involved as a possible full-time candidate. Shut up.
And then...
And ESPN came out with their rumors already saying, we take Jeff Saturday back. Yeah.
Of course. Just like how, you know, who's going to be the next veteran quarterback? Because who knows? Could be Derek Carr. Hey, you know what? If Tom Brady really is leaving the Tampa Bay Bucks, maybe he will go to Indianapolis.
And also,
criteria.
Right. And also, I know it's not a head coach, but I think it's significant. Jets parted ways with Mike LaFleur as their offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Oh, let me make this announcement now because I said I was going to do this.
Please.
So I'm trying to think of the best way to, because people are going to think I'm kidding when I'm saying this.
Okay.
I'm putting my NFL fandom out in free agency.
Wait a minute. Are you renouncing your Jets fandom?
I am renouncing my Jets fandom.
Oh, boy.
I've had enough of this team. I've had enough of the way they're operating. They're not getting any better. We haven't heard anything about their quarterback situation. By the way, I heard a ridiculous rumor today, which I'll tell you in a minute or two. But my NFL Phantom card is now in free agency.
So I will soon try to convince you about joining us across the Hudson and
Well,
not
they
even
share
across the Hudson,
they
just-
share the same stadium.
They share the same stadium. To come over to the other side of the stadium.
I mean, that's one possibility. I'll have to go meet with the Buffalo Bills also because they're technically a New York team.
Are you considering taking your talents to South Beach?
No South Beach. Not in this sport. No. Well, I can't support a Tom Brady team, so that's out there. And no, I don't want to. I don't want to be a part of Duval County. No.
Well, if you're not going to support the Jets, I assume you're not going to support the Dog Pound.
No. Deshaun Watson and the Browns are off my list because I will never support a team with a predator in charge.
I was making the LeBron James reference, but that definitely probably is more important.
I'm trying to think what other teams. I will never support the Patriots because I hate the Patriots, so that's off the list. But right now it's the Giants and the Bills are at the top of the list. So
very fair enough. Nick, I feel like we're forgetting that we're recapping all the firings for coaches. I feel like we're forgetting something.
Oh, what?
This.
Country, Broncos country, let's rock. Broncos country, Broncos country, Broncos country, let's rock.
Well, one last time this season, ladies and gentlemen, Broncos country, let's ride. Congratulations on getting the win, but I think the Seahawks are laughing in your face considering they have a top pick in the draft.
Broncos country, Broncos country, Broncos country, Broncos country, let's rock.
I hope you enjoyed those photos in the background showcasing the misery that just goes with being a Broncos fan.
How the heck did they win this past week?
Because Brandon Staley is a moron.
And, well, I'll save my opinions for him since he's coming up in the playoff Super Wildcard weekend. But this is crazy. It's absolutely nuts.
All right. It's time to talk some Wildcard playoffs, Nick. Let's give our... I'm ready to get some playoff predictions. How about you?
Playoff predictions?
All right. It's the rapid rundown is not here, but it is here with us in spirit. And
right.
I'm ready to give us... So let's talk about some wild card weekend. So,
Are you ready?
let's intensify it a little bit thanks to my soundboard now that it's playoff time. We begin Saturday, 4:30. We have a divisional matchup. 3 of the 6 wildcard weekend matchups are division rivals. It's the Seahawks coming off a big win over the Rams. And then the Lions helping them out. Despite eliminating the Lions helping them out and putting the dagger over
RELAX.
Which, by the way, potentially maybe for the last time. We're back on for the third off season in a row. We are back on the Rodgers watch.
Why?
Will he stay in Green Bay? Will he go to another team? Will he hang it up for good?
Raiders.
I know your opinion about the Raiders that you said on the Football Friday. All right, but let's talk wildcard weekend. So Saturday, 4:30 Eastern, it kicks off with the Seahawks traveling to their division rivals, the San Francisco 49ers, the number 2 seed, with the 49ers a 9.5-point favorite.
Geno Smith versus Brock Purdy.
Well, here's going to be the thing that we talk about with the 49ers. I have all the hype in the world about this, but Brock Purdy, remember, For all that he has done, he is Mr. Irrelevant. He has never sniffed he had never sniffed the obviously this is his rookie season. He has never sniffed the playoffs before. The NFL playoffs can be a whole other stage. Is Brock Purdy ready for that other stage?
I just think the whole team around him is so good that I don't think it's going to matter. I think I've said this for a long time now. Seattle, who ended up losing, right, this past week, or did
No, they
they
won.
win? Oh, they won.
They beat the
Oh,
Rams.
that's why they got in. I mean, beating the Rams, which are absolutely horrible team now.
Sean McVay may be retiring himself. We don't know.
That's a whole different can of worms. But I've said this for the last couple of weeks. Seattle looks like it's out of gas, and the only reason they won last week was because they played a horrible Rams team with Baker Mayfield. The Niners defense is a totally different ball game than the Rams are. Better offense. Christian McCaffrey will run all over them. 9.5 is a pretty heavy spread though for the playoffs.
Yeah. I don't know if I want to take that spread, but like you, I think Brock Purdy is going to succeed. Well, this might be a very bad comparison, but hear me out. Would you consider this similar to Joe Flacco and the 2012-13 Ravens? Because that Ravens team had an incredible defense. And, you didn't really have to worry about that. It's just Joe Flacco. Because Joe Flacco that season beat Peyton Manning, beat Tom Brady, beat Colin Kaepernick.
Well, at least Joe Flacco was a named quarterback. Purdy is Mr. Irrelevant, even though he's played some good games and willing to take chances.
But I do agree that I think the 9.5 is too much. I think the Seahawks can cover this. However, especially because it's divisional and
It's also the playoffs.
What happened?
It's also the playoffs. It's tough to score.
Right. It is the playoffs. It is a whole nother level of competition. Plus, you know what we always talk about with the division games. I know that this is a playoff matchup, but still, this is two division rivals, and usually the weird stuff comes out when division rivals face off. So I'm going to say the Seahawks cover the spread, but the 49ers, like you said, with McCaffrey, Ayuk, all around them, they just have so much of a better team. I say 49ers take it.
And what's his name? The tight end who's now healthy.
George Kittle.
George Kittle's now finally healthy, at least because he was hurt like all year. I just think Seattle's not going to be able to play defensively against all their weapons. I do think 9.5, which means they have to win by 10. So there's a hook there. It's a lot of points to win by 10 in the playoffs. Playoffs are usually the defenses. Even when you have a crappy defense in the playoffs, like defenses play much more tighter than they usually do. I'm going to take the Niners. I don't think they cover. That's a lot to cover. 9.5.
Cool.
They definitely will win, though.
Cool. We're 1 for 1 together on this one.
Yeah.
All right. Then, 8 o'clock that night, 8 o'clock Eastern, in Duval County, the Jacksonville Jaguars, coming off of their last-minute comeback victory over the Tennessee Resign to send Tennessee packing, which, by the way, I'm surprised we didn't see Mike Vrabel's name come up on the Black Monday market.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We didn't even... Well, because he technically wasn't fired yet.
But they will play host to the top wildcard seed, the Los Angeles Chargers, who are a 2-point favorite on the road.
This is crazy how close this game is.
I think the Chargers are technically the better team. They do have the better quarterback in Justin Herbert. The problem is Mike Williams and Joey Bosa. They avoided major injury. They were banged up last week. Now, here's the thing. Brandon Staley didn't need to play them.
Yeah, that was a massive mistake.
The Ravens had lost to the Bengals in the 1 o'clock window, which meant the Chargers were locked into the number 5 seed.
The game was meaningless.
Right. So that's the thing about them losing to the Broncos, because if they did say what the Giants did last week against the Eagles and just didn't play their starters because this game is meaningless to us, then I don't think, you're making fun of them for that, because, well, at that point, it's meaningless. But the fact that they played them, I'll say this right now, with some of the mistakes that we have seen Brandon Staley make as a coach, and especially how he's holding Herbert back. If they lose this game, I think there's a real potential Brandon Staley could be fired.
If he loses game, it's not potentially he will be fired. That's it. If he loses, he's out.
And you know what? I hate betting against Justin Herbert. I love Herbert. You know how much I love Herbert. You know how much Austin Eckler, has been a fantasy football god this season. However, Jaguars have something that we talked about that they help them win this division championship: momentum. The Titans had negative momentum. The Chargers, I hate the fact they're coming into this game with Mike Williams a little banged up, Joey Bosa banged up. Jaguars have the momentum. And you know what? I want a little craziness. I want a little chaos. I know the Jaguars are technically the 4 seeds. So that's not exactly chaos. But the fact that the Chargers are favorited, you know what? Upset City. I'm taking the trip. I am picking Jacksonville to win this game. Brandon Staley gets fired as Chargers head coach.
I mean, I told you this before we started. I think that the Jaguars are not a flatten over team as years past. I'll steal a reference from Hank as Trevor Lawrence is him.
Well, I think Doug Peterson, again, the Jacksonville just goes to show how bad it was under Urban Meyer, because I think Doug Peterson really has taken the problems that team was left with under Urban Meyer, and Doug Peterson has really helped transform Trevor Lawrence into, like he has helped him really, like people were rushing, okay, last season, is he overrated? Was he really ready for the NFL? Well, that's this season has helped to erase some of those questions.
Right. I mean, he's got to come and play, though. It's not like he's just going to be handed the game. But
right. Yes, absolutely.
Brandon Staley can't make some of these fundamental, and I call them fundamental errors, because he's the head coach and makes the choices. We've seen, he basically almost injured Mike Williams and Keenan Allen in the same game right before they were going to a playoff game. A meaningless game. Meaningless. Nothing to... And Staley has done this before, like where... What was it? The game with Herbert with the ribs injury? Like he kept him in the game?
Yeah.
Staley has no leash. So if he loses, his ass is going to be out of Los Angeles with the Chargers. And I don't know if he gets another job anytime soon. With all the other big names out there, he might not.
Well, the question is, will he? Will he lose that leash? Will he get fired?
Like I said, and I'm leaning on the Jaguars too. I'm taking them in the upset also. Just because I think the momentum is in Trevor Lawrence's favor and playing much better now. Who was it that they played? Was it? Oh, they played the Patriots and Tom Brady one year in the playoffs, didn't they? Where they were competitive.
They were a quarter away from going to the Super Bowl and facing the Eagles,
which would have been insane back then. I think this team is much better than that team was, because they had who was it? Was it Gabbard or was it Bortles?
Oh, Bortles, yeah.
Which is so crazy to think about now with Bortles being out of the league.
Well, that's because they had that's because they had Saxonville. That was when they had the Saxonville defense led by Jalen Ramsey,
which was so crazy, by the way. But yeah, I'm taking the upset though.
We're both going with the dog.
Dog.
All right. 1:00 Eastern on Sunday. Another divisional rivalry game. The Dolphins and the Bills. The Bills a 13-point favorite at home in Buffalo. And yes, that is excessively high. But that comes off of the news that came out before we started recording. Tua, as we said at the start of the program, Tua is out. He
officially out.
Officially out. Bridgewater, it seems to be
out.
It will be Skylar Thompson at the helm for Miami. So let's see here. I'm going to steal a reference from Hank too. Josh Allen, Skylar Thompson. Josh Allen, Skylar Thompson. I'm sorry. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. Gabe Davis, Naeem Hines, and all the momentum of the Hamlin thing, yeah. I'm gonna say straight out, I don't need to analyze this game. And I know 13 points is a lot. I know we just said 9.5 was a lot, but if we're really putting Skylar Thompson out there, and Tyreek Hill was damaged a little bit during week 18, he had to come off of the sideline for a bit. That honestly, even with the double-digit line, I'm taking the money. I think this is going to be a blowout.
This is going to be a blowout. And anyone who can you really expect Skylar Thompson to go into Buffalo, New York, and beat that defense? No, you're asking a king's ransom from this guy.
As far as Tua goes, sorry, Nick, but as far as Tua goes, I think because we were just talking about Naomi Osaka and her mental health struggles, obviously. Tua has had concussion troubles 3 times in concussion protocol. And
possibly 4.
Possibly 4, and this one's prolonged. I think Tua needs to have a honest conversation with himself, with his loved ones, if he should continue, especially when we consider the long-term effects of this sport. And it would not surprise me if, honestly, the best option for Tua Tagovailoa is to retire following the season.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I'm sure there would be plenty of broadcasting options if he wanted to go to it. Not that we're saying he should hang it up. I mean, if he can recover and play, all the power to him. But here's the thing. They are going to lose. They are going to lose badly. Thank God this isn't a primetime game. Mm-hmm. I mean, for the offensive pieces standpoint, Miami could compete. When you have the Tyreek Hills and Waddles and those guys of the world, they could compete. But you need someone to throw the football to you, and Skylar Thompson's not that guy. No. I mean, you had, like I said, you have Tua with concussions. You have Teddy Bridgewater with a broken finger. So that basically, I mean, maybe with Teddy Bridgewater you could have had a chance, but that was Skylar Thompson, who's never been in a playoff game. Teddy Bridgewater has been in playoff games.
Right.
So you could make the excuse, I guess, that they would have some experience there. Yeah, this is not going to be close. Money all the way.
Yeah, and we'll have a conversation about the staff, about the Dolphins staff, because we already talked about
the medical personnel needs to be fired. I'm sorry, they do. How do you let someone with 3 concussions back out on the field?
And if you saw the press conference where McDaniel was talking about, let's talk about the Vikings and getting a little annoyed at team about asking about the concussion protocol. Just this staff let him back on the field. So I don't think Mike McDaniel should be fired because, like you said, I think it's more on the training staff. But I think, and especially if Tua is forced to retire after the season, I think he needs to come in next season. It's safe, but next season on the hot seat. Like, you better pull something out of your ass or else you might be next year on Black Monday.
I mean, that's kind of harsh considering.
Which is kind of a shame. Sorry, but which is kind of a shame considering, they got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and all that was looking up for them.
Right. I was going to say that's a little bit harsh because he really turned them around. I don't know. I mean, they played good football for the first half of the year. Then Tua had the concussion issues, and that was basically the end of their season. As soon as he got the second and the third concussion, which, by the way, it should have never have gotten to that point, because when he had the first concussion, they cleared him and they let him go out on Thursday Night Football, and then you had the incident where he basically got flattened out. The second concussion ended up in the hospital, which scared the shit out of everybody. And then you had the concussion, I think, in week 16. Which looked just as bad as the other 2. And supposedly ESPN was reportedly saying he had a 4th, supposedly. But here's the deal. Whether it was 3 or it's 4, it doesn't matter. It's too many. It's too many. Yeah. Having 1 is too many. But you can't control someone getting a concussion once. Getting a concussion once happens. You're playing an aggressive sport where everyone gets hit in the head. So The Miami training staff needs to be fired at the end of the season. Sorry, you're not doing your job.
Okay, 4:25 Eastern on Sunday. Second closest line of the week. It's the Giants at the Vikings in Minnesota. Rematch from Week 16, where the Vikings won on a literal last second 61-yard field goal from Greg Joseph. The Vikings are a 3-point favorite. We've mentioned it on Football Friday that this was probably the best option for the Giants out of all of the divisional opponents that they could have faced. Obviously, they weren't getting the Bucs because of their record and the Bucs record. So between the Eagles, the Vikings, and the 49ers, we said the Vikings were probably the best opponent, winnable opponent.
Let's just say they dodged a bullet from the Niners.
Yeah, which the Seahawks are going to be the victims of that one.
Because I think they would have gotten destroyed by the Niners if that was the case. At least against the Vikings, which they played a close game. If it wasn't for a 61-yard field goal by the Vikings, who knows what would have happened. I think this line is right because both teams are. Even though offensively the Vikings are a way better team than the Giants are offensively, defensively, whole different issue, whole different. They've been in the red all season when it comes to that whole situation.
And that's the other thing that comes up. Johnny loves to bring it up, and ultimately we'll bring it up on this show. The Vikings, despite their 12-5 or 13-4 record,
13-4, yeah,
13-4 record, and with a point differential of -3.
Yeah, that's not good. That's.
And I think some of that comes from the fact that the division rival of the Giants, the defense, but the division rival of the Giants, the Cowboys, absolutely didn't they blast them as 40-3 or something like that?
Yep. That was an embarrassing game, to be honest.
Right, which means if the Vikings ever come up against the Cowboys or the Eagles in the divisional or NFC title round, that could present some trouble.
Right. I mean, the Vikings have looked a little concerning to me the last couple of games. Now, obviously, no one really plays anything in Week 18 anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Most teams are resting. I don't know. It'll be interesting. The rumors that I was starting to talk about earlier was the whole Daniel Jones contract situation, where
they made the playoffs. They made the playoffs. I think he deserved it.
No, but Mike Tannenbaum, the former GM of networks for ESPN, went on Get Up, went on a bunch of morning shows on the radio, and said that Daniel Jones is going to get $30 million a year for 3 years.
I could buy that.
And I was like, "What are you smoking?"
I think it's going to be. I definitely think it's going to be a 2 or 3 year deal.
At $30 million per?
Oh, per? I thought you meant total.
No,
$10 million a year.
Tannenbaum said $30 million a year over 3 years. And I said, "What are you smoking?"
I want to say no, but I want to bring up something that Johnny said on Football Friday. With other teams who are going to be quarterback desperate.
I think I said it too.
Yeah, and you said that too. A season like Danny had, are they going to pressure the Giants to overspend?
But when Tannenbaum said it, I was like, "What are you smoking? Like $90 million over 3 years?" Like I said, he's not worth $90 million over 3 years.
I don't think so either, but I think maybe you have to spend a little more. I think it's safer to put the franchise tag on Barkley than it is on Jones.
Oh, I'm hearing the opposite from a lot of people. They're saying to put the franchise tag on Jones, not on Barkley. It's interesting.
Actually, no, you're right. You're right. Put it on Jones. Put it on Jones because
I think the number on Jones, I think, was 32.
Because then how much?
Because they were doing the averages of the top 5. They said it'd be 32.
I could go for 1 or 2 more years. I could go for a year at 32, but also bear something in mind that if the Giants, even if they lose Barkley, if it's the franchise tag, that means a team is gonna have to give something up for him.
See, the risk you run, like say you're just putting the franchise tag on Saquon to see if someone will take him, and then
But the thing
the
is,
team might take it.
but the thing is, we already stopped. We talked about this at last week's show. The Giants don't want to give either of them up. They want to lock them up both for the long term.
Which I think is a mistake.
Saquon, I don't mind. Danny, like I said, I think you have to give him another year. But
I'm fine
I
with
think-
giving Daniel Jones like a franchise tag if you want to see him play out one more year and prove
But
it.
I think
Prove to me that if we bring you weapons.
But I was gonna say, but then it's up to the Giants. It's gonna be up to them to bring him weapons.
By the way, you want something ironic? I was listening to the Michael K show the day we're recording this, and Michael was saying that DeAndre Hopkins is available and the Giants should go out and get him.
Well, didn't you say that?
I said that, but I'm saying now that was the first time I heard someone of legitimacy say
I
it.
mean, the Cardinals are tearing it down. It might be the opportunity.
And you might be able to get him for on the low.
Right.
Also.
Get him on the low. Like I've told Johnny Football Friday, go get from I know he was in Jacksonville, like now I think now in Detroit, DJ Chark. Go get him.
I still think you should call the Panthers and fight for DJ Moore.
I wouldn't mind DJ Moore, but I think the Panthers are going to be too.
If you can get Hopkins first, he would obviously be your one.
Right.
And then if you could say, hey, I have Hopkins, come play aside Hopkins is the one, you would definitely be able to build a wide receiver tandem. That would give Daniel Jones more targets to prove himself down the stretch and, down the stretch into next season. And then maybe you get to see, maybe you have a franchise quarterback for the future. But
as far as this game goes, though, Nick,
yeah.
As far as this game goes, do you see the Giants pulling off the upside?
Like I said, I think this line is about right. Usually I don't say that very often. I think it's going to be like 24-21 Vikings. I think they win on a late field goal because that's where the 3 really comes from, being the home team. Yeah, I think it's going to be 24-21 Vikings.
Well, this game is going to go one of two ways. One, like you said, close game where the Vikings come out on top, or Giants win the close game because Greg Joseph actually misses a field goal. Would that not be the most Vikings way to end this season?
Well, that's how they isn't that how they got run out of
Blair
Minnesota
Walsh,
last night?
The Seahawks game with Blair Walsh. But I say that because as much as we talk about Greg Joseph, how he's delivered, he had that 61. We have seen him screw up a couple of times there was one of their losses was because he missed a chip shot at the end of the game. And
Right.
and we've seen him miss a couple of extra points. His foot, still has that Minnesota curse on it. However, I am going to side with you. I think the Giants are playing with house money at this point. We didn't think they were going to make the playoffs. We said 500 would be the stretch goal. They got that and then some. I'm happy right now. And you know how conflicted this game makes me because these are my two teams. My team and then my dad's team that I support, and I want to see him happy and see a Super Bowl in his lifetime. One of them's going to move on to the divisional round and I'll be happy, but it's going to come at the expense of another team. So I'm just going to play the favorite. I had my successes with the Giants, locking them in against the Colts, locking them in previously and getting the win and such. They're playing with house money. I'm going to play it safe, take the money on the Minnesota Vikings.
I mean, let me. But what was I going to say? What was I going to say? First of all, whoever won this game is going to get destroyed in the next game anyway, so it doesn't really matter Because I think the winner gets the Niners, right?
Depends. It depends with what happens with the Giants. If the Giants win, it depends on what happens with Monday Night Football. If the Vikings win, they guarantee if the Vikings win, they guarantee the Niners. The Giants would most likely get the Eagles.
Oh, okay. I still don't think they'll win that game. So I think it's a 1-round win if they get one.
All right, but before we get to the Cowboys game, we do have one more Sunday Night Football matchup. Well, you know what? We talked about how maybe Ravens-Bengals should have been the Sunday night for Week 18, but because of the whole circumstance of Hamlin, they went with the Packers because of their little situation. Well, you know what? The NFL still gets its wish. Last Sunday Night Football game of the season in the wild card weekend. It's Ravens versus Bengals. Bengals 8.5-point favorite, and a whole lot of this is the line for now is the time we're recording it. However, there is serious doubt that Lamar Jackson will play. And as I said, there is potential that Lamar may have played his last game in Baltimore. He may not be ready. We may be seeing another Tyler Huntley matchup against Joe Burrow and company. And just like we saw last weekend. Even though the Ravens rested most of their guys last weekend.
I mean, well, and they also were dealing with the whole situation with playing the game against Hamlin, but which screwed up a bunch of schedules. Not their fault, just the way it happened. Cincinnati is a much better team this year. They went through all their injuries. They are fully healthy now. Joe Burrow needs to be considered in the top 3 in MVP this year. You have Mahomes, you have Burrow, and who was the other one that was in the top 3 of the MVP discussion?
Chase?
What?
Oh, no, Chase was a bit of a down year.
Yeah.
You were saying Burrow. Wait, who were you saying?
It was Mahomes. Mahomes and Burrow were.
Burrow
I thought
and Hurts. Jalen Hurts.
Oh, and Hurts. Well, Hurts, I think is out of it now, but I think
Allen then maybe.
I would say right now it's a 2-horse race. To be honest, I think Mahomes and Burrow need to be considered the top 2 at this rate. By the way, if I think Lamar is doubtful at this point, I would say he's not going to play. And if Lamar doesn't play, they don't win. So it's a matter of now, do they cover the 8.5?
I'll go one step further. I think Lamar gives them the best possibility, but the fact that he hasn't played in a while and hasn't practiced this whole week, I don't think they win at all. I think, and as far as this goes, what was the score of last week? I know the Ravens benched most of their guys this week, but what was the score of their Week 18 game? It was 27-16.
And there's bad blood between these teams too.
Their division rivals. This is their third division rivalry. Let's see. They met October 9th, I think it was. Ravens Bengals. What was the result of that game? The Ravens won 19-17, but that was also during a time where the Bengals kind of weren't looking like the last year's selves.
They were not healthy. I think Jamar Chase was out.
So here's what I'm going to do. Nick. I think the Ravens will cover. I think this is, it's another divisional matchup, bad blood, closeness with how playoffs get. But, I mean, the Bengals are still overall the better team. Ravens have no Lamar Jackson. So, you know what, Nick? I'm going to go with the Cats. Don't disrespect the Bengals.
So you have them covering?
No, I do not have them covering. I don't think they cover. I think it's a closer game, but I have the Bengals.
No Lamar. Bengals cover.
All right, that now takes us to the final one of Monday. The final matchup of Wildcard Weekend, the final Monday Night Football of the year. How about them Cowboys going on the road, taking on the Buccaneers, 8-9, making the playoffs as an 8-9 team, while the Lions and Steelers are sitting at home at 9-8.
Well, that goes to show you again how NFL symmetry between divisions is not equal. I mean, it's not like hockey or the NBA where they have the full Eastern and Western Conference divisions. They should really do it that way. That would stop all these under 500 records from making the playoffs.
But an interesting dynamic. The Cowboys 2.5-point favorite. However, Dak I think has played well, better than I think you have considered. However, he comes in as the interceptions leader, and they come off a loss to the Washington Commanders. And because Tampa Bay made it, a really bad loss. And because Tampa Bay made it, but we say about big playoff Tom, once Brady gets into the playoffs and Rodgers gets into the playoffs, obviously
all bets are off.
All bets are anything could happen here.
Well, Cowboys fans, you're going to throw stuff at me because I'm taking the Buccaneers in an upset here. And I didn't even have to think twice about it because the Cowboys have a lot of pressure on themselves. Now, this could have been first takeover exaggerating a bunch of stuff, but they were running banners throughout the whole 2 hours, basically saying, is this a Super Bowl or bust year for the Cowboys?
No,
not win, make the Super Bowl or bust.
Still, no, because there are better teams in that conference.
I mean, if you break down some of the teams, though, the Eagles with Jalen Hurts, not 100% healthy. They lost Lane Johnson. The Niners, not great. I mean, they're good, but Purdy, you don't know what you're going to get from Purdy.
And actually, I want to have a look. I could have sworn the Bucks, the Cowboys and Bucks might have played each other this season. I could have sworn they did.
I think they did.
Week 1, the Bucks defeated the Cowboys 19-3, and that was the game that actually they
didn't Dak get hurt?
Dak Prescott to the injured list. Yeah,
I just think it's bad karma. Also, that he got hurt in a game. Also, yeah, I'm. It's not even a second thought for me. Buccaneers an upset.
See, there is a second thought for me because the Cowboys, I think, do have, the Buccaneers are a very beat up team. They don't look too great, except for Brady coming through the last couple of weeks. And also the fact that we are picking all of the division winners. Like, they were picking the 1s, the 2s, the 3s, and 4s. But like that doesn't happen. There's always one wild card team, which is why I was tempted. I said that means either the Cowboys or the Giants are going to come off on top this weekend. I would say I would have said the Chargers, but then Brandon Staley went full stupid last week. So I'll go with you. Brady's gonna have at least one more playoff victory in him. I'm gonna go with the Dogs, and I'm going to say upset city. Bucks beat the Cowboys at home. So now, Nick,
who would that be? Who would they play?
All right, so when I'm going to, this is actually a perfect transition to that question. Predict the rest of the playoffs. So now we have predicted no wild card teams will make it into the division, which means on the AFC side, you would have the Chiefs versus the Jaguars, and you would have the Bills versus the Bengals. And then on the NFC side, you would have the Eagles versus the Bucks and the 49ers versus the Vikings. So from those 8 teams, I'm going to give you a challenge. Pick the rest of the playoffs. Who do you see in the AFC title game?
By the way,
yeah.
Oh, go ahead. I'll finish in a second.
Okay. Do you see it being Chiefs Bills going to a neutral site?
I think that's going to screw up a bunch of things, but I know why they have to do it because of the whole thing that happened with the uneven records. But Bills, what'd you say? Bills Bengals was the matchup for that goes forward.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, that's going to be a heck of a matchup again.
That'll be so fun. and it'll actually give us some closure.
Yeah, which I think the Bills are still a better team in that matchup. I think they will end up winning that too. And what's the other side of that bracket?
Chiefs versus Jaguars, which is no
Oh,
contest.
the Chiefs are going to destroy the Jaguars.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree on the AFC side. Chiefs, Bills, neutral site game. Where the neutral site's going to be, obviously, we don't know. Hey, I say let's have some full chaos. Either put them in Miami and make them sweat to death, or put them in the frozen tundra of Green Bay, and let's see the madness that happens.
Or put them in Arizona.
Or put them in Arizona. But they'll just go for a dome stadium, I think, to make it kind of even.
And then what's the other side?
Eagles versus Bucks and Niners versus Vikings. I would have to say Eagles versus Niners. I hate doing this 1-2 thing, like going always with a better team, but
yeah, but the Eagles are much better than the Bucks. As long as Jalen Hurts is healthy, they're going to win. And then
the Niners the Niners versus the Vikings. My heart would go with the Vikings, but my brain would go with the Niners on that one.
The Niners are better. Down the stretch, the Niners are just going to be better offensively and defensively than the Vikings.
And as far as the rest of if I could take it one step further, I would say Bills make the Super Bowl. They get the win, riding the Hamlin momentum. But for the sake of having a little bit of bias in me, and for the sake of the Eagles have shown to be beatable, and all the momentum that San Fran has, and not wanting to just continually pick this top seed, I think it's San Fran who makes it for the Super Bowl on the NFC side. I think the San Fran can beat the Philadelphia.
I like the Niners more. I mean, like I said, the Lane Johnson injury is huge because it's going to affect the running game. It affects Jalen Hurts being protected properly. I think that hurts big time. So I think the Niners will come out of there.
It hurts big time.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. That wasn't even planned. I promise. But yeah, so I think, like you said, I think it'll be Bills Niners. I think that would be a heck of a matchup in the Super Bowl.
That would be awesome. All right, we're finally done. I think we broke the record again for longest episode.
Oh God, almost 2.5 hours. Oy.
Yep. All right. So we're gonna get out of here quickly. Just one last note. Again, one last reminder to make sure to hit that like button, make sure to subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you get notified of everything here on the ETV network from us, Game On, Rudy Serial, so much more. Follow us across social media at ETV Sports. Follow the network at ETV Network. You see our personal Twitters scrolling across the bottom. Whole lot going on.
And actually, one more thing. Grab the banner I just dropped in the very last one in the Empty the Bench folder.
Yes, I almost forgot.
So our new
ETVpodcast.com.
Our new website is up and active. There is a blog section on there. I mean, we went 2.5 hours here. Was there anything we missed on here or no?
I don't think so.
I mean, there was Conor McGregor stuff that we didn't get to, but
I kind of addressed that on MMA Outsiders, which, by the way, cheap plug, went out yesterday, episode 21 with myself and Sam Bando, our first show of 2023. Go check that out. Cheapy plug.
When I saw the video of that, he didn't realize that his likes were public.
Oh, no, you're talking about that story. Oh.
Yes. That's why I was messaging you before. How do you not know your likes are public on Twitter? It's bad, though. Please tell me you saw what was trending.
Yeah. And all I know is I need to go re-bleach my eyes. Thank you very much.
Yeah, me too. Trust me. And his name is still trending on Twitter right now. I'm looking at his name still trending. Unbelievable.
ETVpodcast.com. Check us out.
Yeah, like I said, giant blog there. We're all going to be writing on it at some point. A lot of times you'll see extra stuff we couldn't do on the podcast end up on there. So make sure you check out the blog. All our shows are up there. All the feeds and stuff are up there as well. So make sure you check that out.
So for Nick Morgasen, I'm Tom Albano. 2023 is off to a fantastic start in the sports world now, isn't it?
We have a ton of best of content already, and it's only 2 episodes in. Sorry, I don't mean to think that far ahead, but
Maybe we need a summer break after all.
oh no, don't say that, because that's when all the news happens again.
All right. That's Nick. I'm Tom. We'll catch you next week, everybody. Have a good evening.
Good night, everybody. See you next week.